Welcome back to the Dennis Miller Show, folks. We are joined now by actor Orson Bean, actor raconteur. I enjoyed this man. And Calvin Trillin, as I grew up. I used to love to see these guys come on TV because I always knew David Steinberg attempted it, but he was a little too latter day for me. I thought it was a bit derivative of Bean. And I'm not trying to denigrate David. I liked it, but I just liked Orson's more. Great raconteur, great storyteller. I could just listen to the man talk all day. His new book is Mail for Mikey. Welcome to the show, Orson.
Hey, bless your heart, lad. It's good to be here.
And may I compliment you on your daughter's taste? He is a lovely man, Andrew. And is he a good son-in-law? What do you make of Andrew Breitbart? For the radio listeners, they probably don't know Andrew Breitbart is his son-in-law. What do you make of the kid?
Andrew is my delightful son-in-law. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and they're all married. And Andrew is, as you know, a staunch conservative, and all the rest of my kids are little communists, as they're probably supposed to be. So at Thanksgiving, I'm the referee, and it all works out. If only the country could get along that well.
Yes, I find it interesting, Orson, and I think it bespeaks to a man who has grown up in this era that you've been able somehow to arrange the bookending of almost being blacklisted in your early part of your life, and in later life, if not blacklisted, at least fallen into some disparagement for what are thought to be strident conservative views at this point. Tell me about the earlier one, first off, in the 50s.
Well, I got blacklisted in the 50s, mainly because I was horny for a communist girl and went to some meetings with her. And there was, Red Channels was going on at the time, and those of us working in television, very idealistic, as you're supposed to be in your 20s, and we decided to run a slate of candidates for AFTRA to oppose the blacklist, and I got elected.
Right.
And for my pains, Ed Sullivan himself called me up and said, the booking next Sunday is out. Have you seen Red Channels? And then I felt the blood draining out of my face, and I said, no. He said, I'll help you when I can. And
wow.
A year went by, and he remembered his promise, and the blacklist had lifted quite a bit, thanks in part to our victory in the Union, and he booked me again, and I'll always remember Ed for that.
Wow, that's admirable. I had always thought that he was, when you fell off his radar, you fell off it. I guess I'm aware of the Jackie Mason story, but it sounds like he, an elephant nor Ed never forgets. Good for him. Now listen.
He did a lot of good things. And I remember I was the host of a show on CBS that had musical people on it, and when Pearl Bailey was on, we were told, don't touch her. This is in the early 50s. Now, if your shoulder even brushes Pearl Bailey's shoulder, we will lose stations in the South. And when Pearl Bailey went on the Sullivan Show, he threw his arm around her and said, how you doing, Pearlie Mae? And all over the South, TVs went black. And people called up the local station and said, what happened to the Ed Sullivan Show? Well, he touched a nigger. Well, I know, but it's the Ed Sullivan Show. And that was the end of that nonsense.
Good. Wow. God bless. I'm going to research Ed a little more. I've watched the shows. I wonder if there's a good biography out there, because now I'm highly enamored of the guy. Let's go to another host, a more enigmatic one, and one whose fragility was often the thing that enticed me about him. Tell me about Jack Parr. What did you make of him?
Jack Parr was an enigma. I was the regular substitute host with Parr on The Tonight Show when it came from New York, back in the early days when The Tonight Show wasn't such a big deal. And he was an odd stick. And when he had that meltdown one night over the fact that they had bleeped out the word WC, which stands for water closet, how times have changed,
yes,
and threatened to quit, I stuck up for him. And he never forgave me for sticking up for him. He couldn't take it.
Well, I almost think he wanted out. And, when Gary Hart said, follow me and see if I'm sleeping with anybody, I almost felt like he was setting up a paradigm where he had to be knocked out soon. And I look at Parr, and he seemed to walk off over such odd things and such petulance that I almost feel he thought he wasn't up to the task in the long run, and he had to get out of there somehow.
He was a strange man, but he had on genuine raconteurs.
Right.
Now the late night shows have on people plugging their latest movie, but he had on yarn spinners, and it was interesting, but he was a strange bird.
Yeah, we're talking to Orson Bean. He has a new book out, Mail for Mikey, and I can't quite glean the title. Explain it to me, Orson.
Mail for Mikey is a series of emails. It's a love story really written in a somewhat fictional form, and it's about how I met my wife, and it's really about how I became a Christian. I am a Christian working in what's widely perceived to be an atheistic business, television. But I'm not so sure it is. I was doing a guest spot on 2.5 Men not long ago, and I was sitting there in between takes reading a copy of a C.S. Lewis book on Christianity, and I can't tell you how many people, crew and actors alike, came over, say, "Ooh, I've heard of that. That's interesting." So there seems to be a hunger out there, even in the television business.
Yes, I've read C.S. Lewis, and I had never had the moment. I guess Werner Erhard referred to it as getting it in a secular sense. I've never had. Did you have a moment, Orson, where something came into you?
I didn't really have a moment. I used up all my other ways to become happy. I've been famous all my adult life. Not so famous that I had to wear dark glasses to walk in the street, but famous enough that head waiters would recognize me and give me a good table.
Great
and
fame.
that made me happy for a while.
Yeah.
And I had more good sex than anyone I know, and that made me happy for a while. And I've always had enough dough, and all of it worked for quite a while. And then finally, because I was determined to be happy, I began sniffing around with that religion and this religion, and finally I became a Christian, and it works, and I'm still a dirty old man.
So God is somehow able to accommodate that part of you.
Absolutely, He loves it. The Bible is full of dirty old men. My God, Abraham lets the king of Egypt give his wife a pop and gets paid off with slaves and camels. It's great Arabian Nights show.
Tell me who Mikey is, though. You say that these are emails to your wife, but who is Mikey in the title?
Mikey is a 20-year-old drunk that the narrator, me, sends emails to and tries to tell him about life.
And is in a sponsor 12-step sort of way, or what?
Yes, and it's exactly a 12-step thing. I was in a 12-step program for 7 years, and that's really how I got involved with God, because there was a wonderful guy that I said, "What should I do?" when I first got into it. He said, "Get down on your knees in the morning and thank God for your night's sleep." I said, "Well, I don't think I believe in God." He says, "It doesn't matter. Do it anyway." I said, "Well, why do I have to get on my knees?" He said, "He likes it." So,
you know what, Orson, I must have a little Christian in me, because periodically I'm either so overwhelmed by the graces I've received, or so sad for somebody else's plight that I beg forgiveness or mercy for them, that I do supine myself. And I literally have had that feeling where I thought, I have to get to a house of worship, I have to put that kneeler down, and I have to either express my thanks or my pleading for somebody on my knees right now. So that's interesting that he told you that. Maybe I have a little of this Christian thing.
My book is written exactly for people like you. It's too raunchy. It has the F word in it. It's too raunchy for most Christians, but it's for people like you who are interested but suspicious, who keep sniffing around but are terrified of becoming Ned Flanders.
Well, Orson, can I tell you that in addition to reading this book, which I am going to do on my trip back east this week now that my interest is piqued to this degree, can Andrew set up a dinner? Because I would love to meet you, sir.
I would love to meet you, too. I love how Bill O'Reilly worships at your feet. It just kills me every week.
Well, Orson, you are about as interesting a guest as I've ever had in any format, and I appreciate your time, my friend. The book is Mail for Mikey. The author is Orson Bean, and I dare say that is about as fascinating as a man as I've ever chatted up in any medium. We'll be right back, 866-99-Dennis, right after this on The Dennis Miller Show.